Iran on Sunday threatened U.S. bases in the West Asia after massive airstrikes that Washington said had destroyed Tehran's nuclear program. International concern focused on fears that the unprecedented U.S. attacks would deepen conflict in the volatile region after Israel launched attacks on Iran earlier this month. Now Iran has also upped the warnings. In a televised address, an advisor to Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei said any country in the region or elsewhere that is used by American forces to strike Iran will be considered a legitimate target for Iranian armed forces. Meanwhile, people gathered Sunday in central Tehran to protest against the attacks. As Iran's leaders struck defiant tones, President Masoud Pezeshkian also vowed that the United States would receive a response to the attacks. Meanwhile, the Israeli army carried out strikes on Iranian military targets, including missile launch and storage sites on Sunday. The attacks were carried out on storage and missile launching infrastructure sites, as well as military satellites and radar sites. Israel also struck several parts of northwest Iran on Sunday, Iranian media reported, as fighting between the arch enemies raged. At least 3 people were killed on Sunday after an Israeli strike hit an ambulance in central Iran. Israel's military was checking results of the U.S. raid on the deeply buried nuclear facility in Fordow, with a spokesman saying it was uncertain if Iran had already removed enriched uranium from the site. 9 members of the Revolutionary Guards were killed Sunday in Israeli attacks on central Iran. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the country is even closer to its objectives in Iran after U.S. airstrikes on Iranian nuclear facilities ordered by President Donald Trump. He reiterated that Israel's goal remains the dismantling of Iran's nuclear and missile capabilities. At a press conference, Netanyahu said Israel has made significant progress and with President Trump's support, they are nearing completion of their mission.
ועכשיו בעזרת הנשיא טראמפ אנחנו התקרבנו עוד יותר להשלמת מטרותינו. כשנשיג את המטרות, אנחנו לא נמשיך בפעילות מעבר למה שנדרש כדי להשיג אותם, אבל אנחנו גם לא נסיים את זה מוקדם מדי. כשהמטרות יושגו, אז המבצע יושלם והלחימה תיפסק. זה ייקח עוד קצת זמן, אבל אין ספק שההישגים הגדולים שלנו באיראן תורמים גם להשגת היעדים בעזה. אני מחויב להשיג את שניהם.
Meanwhile, the situation in West Asia has revealed deep divisions among nations. The UN Security Council met in an emergency session on Sunday following the US strikes. Russia, China and Pakistan circulated a draft resolution during the meeting calling for an immediate and unconditional ceasefire in West Asia. During the meeting, Iran's ambassador to the UN, Amir Saeed Iravani, accused the United States of manipulating the Non-Proliferation Treaty into a political weapon used as a pretext for aggression and unlawful action.
The timing, nature and the scale of Iran's proportionate response will be decided by its armed forces. Throughout history, the resilient and united Iranian nation has withstood deeper wounded and faced more vicious enemies, and this time too. It will show its dignity, strength and greatness to the world. All US allegations against Iran are unfounded, with no legal basis and politically motivated.
Acting US Envoy Dorothy Camel-Shea defended the strikes, saying Iran had obstructed negotiations and posed a growing threat.
Iran has long obfuscated its nuclear weapons program and stonewalled good faith efforts in recent negotiations. Madam President, the time finally came for the United States, in the defense of its ally and in the defense of our own citizens and interests, to act decisively. The Iranian regime cannot have a nuclear weapon. Let us be clear. Iran should not escalate.
Israel's ambassador Danny Danon echoed that warning, accusing Iran of using diplomacy to stall while it developed missiles and enriched uranium.
To those who now fake concern and cry escalation, we say, this is what the last line of defense looks like, when every other line has failed. Make no mistake, the cost of inaction would have been catastrophic. A nuclear Iran would have been a death sentence just as much for you as it would have been for us.
Russia's ambassador Vasily Nebenzia harshly criticized the US for bypassing international diplomacy.
Таким образом, Вашингтон в очередной раз продемонстрировал полное пренебрежение к позиции международного сообщества и подтвердил, что ради интересов своего израильского союзника он готов не только закрывать глаза на убийство десятков тысяч палестинских женщин, детей и стариков, но и поставить на карту безопасность и благополучие всего человечества. Своими действиями Соединенные Штаты открыли, кто не знает, к каким новым последствиям это может привести.
Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi arrived in Moscow on Sunday for talks after a US attack on key nuclear facilities. Iran official news agency IRNA said that Araghchi will hold consultations with the Russian president and other senior officials regarding regional and international developments following the military aggression by the United States and Israel against Iran. Earlier, talking on the sidelines of Organization of Islamic Cooperation meeting in Istanbul on Sunday, the Iranian foreign minister said the United States and Israel crossed a major red line in attacking Iran's nuclear facilities. An exceptional meeting of the International Atomic Energy Agency will be held on Monday in its headquarters in Vienna in response to the US strikes. The emergency meeting is convened by the IAEA chief Rafael Grossi at the request of Iran following Israeli strikes on the country. Earlier, the UN's nuclear watchdog said it had not yet detected any increase in radiation levels at key nuclear sites in Iran after the US strikes. EU's Foreign Affairs Council meeting will also be held on Monday in Brussels. The Council will exchange views on the current situation in West Asia, including Israel-Iran conflict and Russia-Ukraine conflict. They will also hold discussions on China and European security. All right, and DD India's Amit Mukherjee joins us live. Hi, Amit. Good morning. All eyes were on Strait of Hormuz, Amit, and now Iran has closed it down. How do you analyze the implications?
Good morning, Sadat. Yes, all eyes are right now on Hormuz. Now, we have to understand that the Iranian parliament has cleared the closing down of this particular stretch, which is very critical for oil trade across the global oil trade. But it's still the Supreme Council of Iran that is to take a final call on this, because at the back end there are deliberations and discussions and negotiations which are still on, which is basically to discourage Iran to take such action. Now, in fact, the US has also called out to various countries, including China, because China is one of the largest consumers of oil, which actually pass through this Hormuz Strait. Now, we have to understand what kind of a geographic location is it. I mean, it is in the Persian Gulf. It's about a 33 kilometer wide stretch, but only three kilometers of it is, navigable. And it connects the Persian Gulf with the Arabian Sea. So all these oil, exploring countries, including Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and of course Iran, the oil of these places actually come out and go to various locations across the globe through this particular stretch. Now, last year it accounted for almost 1/5 of the total oil that was kind of traded across the globe. So it's very, very critical. In fact, on a daily basis, about 20 million barrels of oil pass through this strait. Now, one has to now understand, what is the kind of step Iran might take if at all it decides to close down, whether it's some attacking the vessels which are passing through it, or it kind of, since it's a small 3 kilometer stretch, which is actually used for navigation, it's very, very well, it can be managed. but what are the kind of actions that Iran deploys to actually stall, if at all it decides to go ahead with the, disruption of oil transportation through this particular route. Siddharth?
Indeed, a very important Strait of Hormuz. This is, 30% of world's oil supply goes from here. Now, Amit, with strikes still continuing, fears of wider regional conflict is very much there. US has said that there would be additional strikes if Tehran retaliated. Given the present situation, Amit, what can be expected in near future?
No, so that we haven't really seen much happening after the US strikes on those, three critical nuclear facilities of Iran. So the world is waiting with a bated breath as to what the exact, response of Iran would be. But again, looking at, the various, options which Iran has. Number one, it can go ahead and attack US, areas of interest. Now, one has to understand in the West Asia, US still has about 19 bases, which out of which 8 are almost permanent bases. It still has about 40,000 troops out there. So one could be that Iran responds by, going against these, areas of US interest which are there in this particular region. The other is that it can activate its proxies, which are there in Iraq, Syria, Yemen, and Lebanon. But again, one has to understand that as far as, Yemen and Lebanon is concerned, Yemen's Houthis have kind of, there has been some sort of a settlement that has been reached in May between the US and the Houthis that they're not going to, US will not mount any sort of a military campaign against them provided they don't touch the US interest. Now, the other thing is that Lebanon's Hezbollah has been a very, very sort of a strong proxy arm as far as Iran is concerned. It could have activated that, but again, look at the past 1 to 3 months, the Israeli attacks have kind of, completely destroyed the capabilities of Hezbollah as far as Lebanon is concerned. So that remains, leaves the other two, Syria and Iran. If you look again, in the past 3-4 months, Israel has, has struck a deal with Syria by lifting several sanctions, which has been on for years together now, which is why the Syrian dispensation is now more close to the US, administration. So again, that is what Iran would have to look into. The options are also very, very limited. Although if you look at back the situation 6 months back, Iran had more options, I would say, because all these accesses were very, very active. But now they have been destroyed considerably. So the other thing is that Iran might just continue attacking Israel and try and kind of, try and deplete its resources and try and tire it out. And the other is, of course, we discussed right now the oil, the kind of actions Iran takes on the global oil trade. So all these elements put together, of course, you asked, it has a, it can lead to a wider conflict.
All right. We leave it there. Thank you so much, Amit.